Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Real Talk and ELT. Today, we're going to talk about why advanced English is just not enough for high band scores if we're talking about IELTS, TOEFL, and other international tests. So, I'm sure that most people who have ever taught exam prep classes have this kind of frustrating experience that happens. You see your student, they're doing great. My student's clearly advanced, or they're doing really well, upper intermediate. They're performing and producing at the level that they would need to do those tests, because usually those tests are gateways for personal plans, career plans, academic plans. And they really communicate well, but their scores just won't move. They're not reflective of how they can communicate in day-to-day activities, classroom activities, things like that. And my assumption is that this often leads to the wrong conclusion that the learners are quote unquote blocked or anxious, careless, or maybe they're bad test takers, like I'm really bad at tests. And the reality is, which is slightly uncomfortable but very important to state, is that this is rarely a learner problem. I mean, with clear exceptions to maybe learning disabilities, this is rarely a learner problem. It's almost always a misunderstanding of what the exams are actually measuring. For me, again, my opinion is that high stakes exams do not reward proficient English or good English or high level English or advanced English in the general sense. They reward very specific trained performance under certain conditions. Hey there, it's Kelly, and if you're here for miracle fixes, shiny classroom hacks, or whatever today's buzzword is trending, not gonna happen. What you will get is real talk about English teaching, teacher training, and the chaos we actually deal with in ELT. So let's get into it. So let's get hydrated, moisturized, and let's get into it. So let's talk about general proficiency versus test performance, because those are really two different skill sets that I think, I don't even want to put it like, novice teachers. No, not necessarily. I think it's just teachers who haven't been through the experience of how high stakes some exams are for people in their lives. And then they think that they can prep people for these international exams doing kind of the same thing that they do in their classroom, like their everyday classroom. So here's the problem with that. General language proficiency is pretty broad. It's pretty flexible. Students are often communicating meaning, negotiating misunderstandings, kind of adjusting their register naturally, depending on the social situations or, that they're in. They are usually using language creatively and spontaneously. I mean, that's kind of like general uses of the language, but exam performance is very much narrowed down out of that. And of course it's rule bound. I mean, it's a test, right? So it's pretty obvious. I'm stating the obvious here, not reinventing the wheel, stating the obvious that this is, what students have to do is you have to complete this exact task in this exact format, under this exact time pressure, while meeting very explicit scoring criteria and rubrics. So a student can speak fluently, read complex texts, write emails, work reports, all that stuff, and still underperform in an exam, because none of those skills guarantee task compliance. And that's what it is, compliance. Because exams are not asking how good is your overall level of English. It's asking, can you perform this very standardized communicative task in the way that we define it as successful? So that's a whole different thing that's going on. So let's take a look at what exams actually reward and what they don't. Exams typically reward familiarity with task logic. What is the task really asking me to do? Because you need to know that. And if you're, as a teacher, if you don't know that and you're doing test prep, then it's concerning. And if you don't know it, it's okay, but you should figure it out. before you step into the classroom with that student, because that's the honest thing to do, I guess. Control the response structure. So exams very much reward that this is the structure that we want. And okay, so then you have put in all the pieces. They also reward strategic decision making under time pressure. So can you prioritize the things that are going to get you, in layman's terms, most bang for your buck? Is there clear prioritization of information? Can you look through the information and say, okay, this is what I need, here's where this is, and kind of go through the task? What they don't reward: creativity, personal style, rich but unfocused language, and over elaboration where it's not required. So this is why students often hear, your ideas are good, but you didn't fully answer that question. Your response lacks clarity. Also, this is trash feedback to give students if you're the one that's giving them feedback, because we need to go through that also. But those comments are not about English level. They're just pretty much looking at exam literacy gaps. Like, you don't know how this works. So let's talk about assessment literacy. So in plain non-academic terms, because that is not my style, assessment literacy simply means that you know how the exam decides what is quote unquote a good answer. And you have to understand what examiners are trained to look for. So this includes rubrics, band descriptors, examiner priorities and thresholds, etc. And without this knowledge, teachers tend to give really vague advice. I don't test prep for many tests because for me, well, first, cognitive overload for me to like really dive deep into all of these tests and figure them all out bit by bit to be able to be useful, a useful tool for my students. Students tend to repeat the same mistakes over and over, and then their score plateaus, there's frustration, and it's just a bad scene. So feedback like, be clearer, develop your ideas more, use more complex languages. Like, it's useless unless it's explicitly tied to scoring category and concrete action. So the students don't kind of need this. You need to put in more effort. It's hard. They really need a very clear cause and effect guidance. Like, if you do this, it's going to be okay. If you continue to do that, it's not going to get you the band score that you want. Simple as that. So why more practice alone doesn't fix the problem? Because sometimes we're just like, okay, no, it's fine. These programs that you see out there, it's like they rely on volume. More tests, more writing, more speaking tasks. You'll definitely pass then. You got to do it over and over and over again. And while I love repetition, and I do, I love repetition. I love doing things in a routine until I feel comfortable doing them. It's the anxiety in me. The problem in that is that practice without strategy reinforces these existing habits. And if the habit is misaligned with the exam, repetition is just making it worse. So this is how the plateau forms. So I'm now repeating a really bad behavior that's not getting me the results that I want. And I'm just, continuously doing that. And then students feel busy, teachers feel productive, and then the score remains unchanged. So practice of mock test and all of those tasks and assignments, the individual sections of the different tests, whatever test you want to be testing for, that's fine. Whatever your focus is on, not a big deal, but you need to do that after task analysis, strategy introduction, and clear success criteria. Because otherwise, you're just rehearsing failure more efficiently.
Super quick, I promise. If you're looking for a teaching certification, specialization, even a micro-credential, Bridge EDU is a solid pick. And with my link, you get 10% off any course they offer. Check out the link below and let's get back to it.
So I see it over and over again with teachers that are unfamiliar, not inexperienced. They're just kind of maybe dipping their toes into the testing game, or maybe they've been in the testing frame for a while and they've got this magical luck that all of their students just happened to pass at the level, but they really didn't do what they needed to do to get them there. Anyways, here are some common teacher errors that I have found just kind of in my mingling with teacher training programs and working with teachers. Some teachers teach test prep classes like advanced English classes. So they focus on all of that nice, pretty language instead of task fulfillment. That's a really big, like, red flag. Like, you can have all the beautiful language in the world, but if you can't complete a task effectively, efficiently, and kind of scoring all of the bonus points in there with criteria, it's not going to help your students. Over prioritizing accuracy. Don't get me wrong, academic tests typically are focused on a lot of accuracy, though in most recent years, the criteria and the rubrics and the band descriptors have been moving away from only relying on the accuracy model, but teachers in the classroom sometimes still haven't gotten out of that yet. So we're trying to penalize all the small language slips and mistakes and errors. And those really have minimal score impact at this point based on the banding and the scoring rubrics that are put out by the institutions from the tests. So the next one is ignoring timing as a teachable skill. You assume that students will just get faster on their own. Nope. They will get faster when you teach them how to prioritize tasks, how to strategically go through and use their time more effectively. It's not like, oh, everybody knows how to take a test. Well, we've all been in testing scenarios, but not everybody knows how to take a test the most efficient way possible. Not teaching strategic choices. So what should you skip? What do you need to simplify? What to prioritize when time is running out? What should you prioritize? Because it's again, most bang for your buck, the most likely points that you can accrue in the shortest amount of time while you're under that time constraint. And another one, and the final one, I guess I can say for all of my little notes that I've had here, is correcting language without explaining. Like, this is wrong. Okay, awesome. But then you have to tell them, like, why does this matter for the score? Because remember, they're doing this just for the score. So, like, this is not acceptable, or this is inaccurate, or this is not going to get you the most possible points in terms of, I don't know, whatever band criteria they have there. And then tell them, like, this affects directly this criteria. This descriptor. Let's look at the descriptor. So look at the disconnect here. They have to see that what they're producing is not just producing it to try and get through the test. They're trying to produce it so that they can get the band score that they need so that they can go off and do whatever they want to do. So that was a lot of complaining. But in my opinion, it's my podcast, so I can give my opinion. You might disagree with me, and that's okay. You should just put it in the comments if you do. My opinion, the most effective test prep actually looks like this. One, we have to have explicit task deconstruction. You got to break down the task, what it demands before the students even attempt it. What are you trying to do here? They need to know so that they can recognize it in future tasks. Two, they need to have strategy instruction before they practice, because otherwise they're practicing bad habits. So how to plan, how to allocate time, how to structure responses efficiently, effectively, and try and gobble up as many points as possible. They have to know how to do that. They have to know what the assessors are looking for. Three, feedback is always, always, always directly linked to scoring criteria. And it should be structured like this. Like, this limits your task achievement score because X, Y, Z. This affects coherence, not grammar. Here's where you need to look next time, X, Y, Z. And then the last one, four, is it four? Yeah. Four. I've got my notes here, but sometimes. Teaching students how to think like the exam, not to game it, not to like boost your points, but operate within the logic of the exam confidently. Here's the logic behind this. Here's why they're doing this. And it'll probably reduce their anxiety a lot. So what we need to do is reframe test prep for teachers. Because mentally, sometimes test prep often is dismissed as it's mechanical, it's boring, can be, unless you have a very lively personality and you bring that to the table every single time. And it's less quote unquote pure than communicative teaching. Sure, because it's a means to an end. Students need the test to be able to do something in their personal professional life. So yeah, it's not super communicative in the sense that they're going to be using it to communicate within, I don't know, some language community that they're going into. Yeah, no kidding. It's a test. So in reality, strong test prep knowledge helps because it deepens understanding of assessment, it sharpens your instructional clarity, and it transfers into ESP, EAP, academic writing context. Like all of these strategies actually do help people in real world scenarios. You can see, even if it's tangentially very thin connections, even so, they can use a lot of the strategy and the critical thinking and the analysis. They can use that in their other places, like work, for example, or personal life, or if they're trying to do projects on their own or solve problems. So it is a very stabilizing professional skill for English teachers. Because exams they exist everywhere. We'll just put that out. They exist everywhere because this is the only way on large scale that we can standardize, making sure that the people who are entering into workforce placement, academic scenarios, whatever they're going into, immigration purposes, that they can function in those capacities. Is it perfect? No. Can people scan the system because they're really good test takers? Yeah. Can some people be excluded because they're horrible test takers? Hopefully not after you do your research, but they're horrible test takers and they can never get the right score. And so then they're excluded from these things. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it is what it is. This is what we have. This is standardized testing as of right now. So we have to move forward with the existing program and standards until a new system is created that is a little bit more fair and just and accurate in terms of analyzing how people are interacting and producing the language. So institutions need the results. So they do need results in terms of, even if you're working for a language school, they need to have students who are performing well. So for you, it's a very marketable skill, and students actively seek qualified prep teachers. Just this year, December and January, I've had a little flood. I mean, I have private lessons, so it's not like a flood like a school necessarily, but I'm a private teacher, so like a trickle. We can say like a little creek or something of messages popping in of people wanting to go to the US, to Europe, to Canada for various reasons, professional, personal, tourism, immigration. They're going to be doing, I don't know, one of them was a doctor that's doing like finishing a postgraduate degree. I don't know. There's a bunch of people that have messaged me for this. And like, I don't do test prep for all tests. I do it for very specific ones because it's the ones that I'm comfortable with. So, I mean, people do like kind of send you messages. It's not really a niche specialization. It's really kind of professional leverage because if you know tests and you can prep people for it and you get a history of successful students passing these courses or your course and then subsequently the test, it can certainly turn into something that's lucrative for us little teachers. Anyways, so closing thoughts. Advanced English is necessary, but it's not sufficient when it comes to test prep. Scores don't move when teachers teach language, but the exams are assessing performance. There's like a disconnect. So we have to get on the same page. And when teachers understand the difference, they can stop blaming them, and students stop blaming themselves and the courses and everything else. Preparation becomes very purposeful, very strategic, and usually very effective.
That's it for today. If you want more, I've got binge-worthy playlists right here on the channel. You can also grab some resources at kellypenningtonelt.com, Instagram at kellypenningtonelt, and yes, even LinkedIn, where I do my best impression of being professional. Links below. See you in the next one.